This is the Dark Zero Horror Network. Psychological Autopsies.
Hope he didn't bite off more than he can chew.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping ourselves into a time machine set for November 1994.
Oh, I like this.
We're taking a hard left turn away from the multiplex and diving headfirst, really, into the paperback aisle. We are exploring a fascinating and, frankly, a pretty bizarre corner of forgotten horror history.
We are. It's the attempt to turn Freddy Krueger into a young adult novel star.
It sounds completely ridiculous on its face.
It does, but it's also, a brilliant piece of brand maintenance when you think about it. We are deep diving into a stack of sources detailing the very first entry in the Freddy Krueger's Tales of Terror series.
That's right, the book Blind Date, published by Tor Books. And our mission today is to give you, the learner, the absolute shortcut to being well-informed on this piece of 90s nostalgia. We're going to unpack the specific corporate necessity that brought this book to life.
We'll also dissect its strangely mean-spirited plot.
And finally try to figure out why the verdict on this really short novel was so incredibly divergent.
And before we pull on the glove, we have to give a massive thank you to the listeners over at the Dark Zero Horror Podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Your collective enthusiasm for this specific weird moment in 90s horror is really what inspired us to dig up the history of these strange books and, bring this deep dive to life.
It really is. Yeah. So we're diving in, but first we have to acknowledge the absolute absurdity of the initial hook here.
Oh, it's the best part.
It is maybe the most magnificent image in all of late-stage Freddy canon. The opening features Freddy Krueger donning a long black trench coat and sunglasses.
At night.
Lurking around the biggest nerd in Springwood High.
Was this an intentional joke, or did they genuinely think this was peak mid-90s cool?
I don't know. The research doesn't offer a definitive answer, but the consensus seems to be that the author was trying to capture the goofiest side of the cinematic Freddy.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the context, because this book really doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Not at all.
By 1994, Freddy Krueger wasn't just a slasher villain. He was a full-blown celebrity. I mean, the source material reminds us that in the 80s, the nation just sort of embraced this child murderer as this punny, wisecracking pop culture hero.
That's the key distinction. Freddy had a personality. He wasn't the silent, hulking Jason Voorhees.
No.
Freddy had the pizza face and the glove, sure, but he was theatrical. He was big. Business comics, video games, clothing, even a syndicated TV show called Freddy's Nightmares. He was the horror icon because he could actually talk and engage with you.
But time marches on. Right.
Yeah.
And by 1994, that character was on a, what did the sources say, a downward trajectory.
Right. I mean, Wes Craven's New Nightmare was on the horizon, but that film was taking the character in a really meta, complex direction.
An intellectual reboot, basically.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the cash cow, the traditional version of Freddy, needed brand maintenance.
Yeah, the clock was ticking. Freddy vs. Jason was still nearly a decade away from happening.
A whole decade. So the character would just vanish from the public eye. So the solution was the cheapest, fastest way possible to keep that name recognition alive. Books.
And the timing was just perfect. R.L. Stine had single-handedly created this massive, booming young adult horror market.
Oh, huge.
You had Goosebumps for the younger kids, and then Fear Street for the teens, who, let's be honest, were already the main audience for the Nightmare on Elm Street films anyway.
It was a commercial necessity disguised as a literary opportunity. Why not give the teens a version of Freddy tailored specifically for that mass market format?
And the critical notes highlighted that Jason Voorhees also got a similar series that same year, so this was clearly a corporate strategy.
Yeah, a coordinated push.
So Blind Date was released in November 1994, a tight 156 pages, published by Tor Books. The author, Bruce Richards, is listed, although there's some speculation this might have been a pen name.
Right, though Richards did write other successful 90s YA horror like Cat Scratch Fever.
So he was in that world.
Totally. The mandate was simple. Write a fast, compelling page-turner that captured the energy of the films while fitting into the established YA format. Short chapters, quick scares, and a huge focus on teenage drama.
So, okay, that background paints a picture of corporate necessity, but let's pivot now to the bizarre nightmare they actually deliver.
Yes, Slip.
The plot is centered naturally on Springwood High School and two core characters.
You've got Alicia, popular, good looks, dating the football star. She's your established YA heroine. And then you have Evan.
Weird Evan.
Weird Evan. The stereotypical biggest dweeb and nerd in school. He lives across the street, on Elm Street, of course. And just to nail the point home, he sometimes drives a hearse to high school.
I have to pause on the hearse detail. That is so wonderfully aggressively 90s.
Still a lot.
Like, was the use of Weird Evan almost a trope parody by 1994? Did the author lean into the cliches or try to subvert them?
The research suggests they leaned right into the cliches, but then injected them with some real nastiness. The central conflict revolves around Alicia's fatal flaw: sympathy. She feels genuinely sorry for Evan and the constant cruel jokes her friends play on him.
Here's where it gets really interesting, Lerner. Because the research suggests this plot isn't just dark, it's genuinely cynical.
That's the core viciousness the critics spotted. Alicia's attempt to be nice to Evan doesn't help him. It actively makes things worse.
Also,
The kinder she is, the more her awful friends respond by, constantly beating Evan up and torturing him. The tension just mounts severely. It suggests kindness is a dangerous catalyst for violence in this version of Springwood.
wow. And as the tension mounts, friends start to disappear. This is where the book had to prove it was tougher than Goosebumps.
Exactly.
The authors of the source material highlighted a specific shocking detail used to signal real depravity.
Oh yeah, the cat.
The discovery of a dead cat with its eyes plucked out, found in the trunk of a car.
Checking a box, as one reviewer put it, which is a brutally cynical way to look at it. But the book needed to stand out. It had to signal quickly that, yes, this is a Freddy Krueger universe, and things are going sideways in a way that, say, Fear Street generally avoided.
The sources say it possesses a more vicious heart than Stein's books.
And it does.
And that initial plot description captures this moral ambiguity perfectly. Alicia feels sorry for Evan, but her sympathy only makes it worse. That turning of teenage niceness into a dangerous fault line, that's what gives the book its edge.
And speaking of nasty characters and cynical structures, let's talk about how Richards managed to fit all this melodrama into such a small package.
Yeah, 156 pages, that's not much.
No, it's really short, and it's designed to be read compulsively, often in just one sitting. Bruce Richards clearly knew how to write for maximum pace.
And he deployed the full 90s YA checklist. I mean, you have the freedom of the car. Car stuff was huge for signifying teenage autonomy.
Huge.
You have the mounting excitement and, nervousness around the big dance.
And then you throw in the universal teenage staples. Bad parents and bad friends who consistently let you down, the presence of institutional evil often centered around a doctor figure.
And, of course, raging teenage romances.
All of it. The sources confirm these tropes weren't just decoration. They anchored the fantastical threat of Freddy in relatable high school drama.
Right. If the book is only 156 pages, how much time can they possibly devote to both the complex teen drama and Freddy? Doesn't one of them have to suffer?
Well, that's where the character work shines, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah. The critical notes highlighted that Richards gave enough personality to even minor characters to make the relationships feel immediate, but the depth sometimes revealed a darkness that felt almost too intense for the genre.
You mentioned Evan is described as a pretty nasty character with nasty plans. One source even noted he might not get past an editor today. What does that imply about the book's tone?
It implies that the story leans into the antagonist, Evan, being genuinely repulsive and manipulative, beyond just being a victim of bullying.
So he's not just misunderstood.
Not at all. It's not just Freddy who is the monster. The teenager is capable of true malice, and this darker internal logic is why the book felt so mean-spirited to some readers, distinguishing it sharply from the comparatively safer Fear Street formula.
So we have a fast, mean-spirited, character-driven story. But the big question remains, where is the man with the glove, and how do they keep him threatening when the rules say he can't be too gruesome?
That's the challenge, right. It's a necessary commercial restriction. Because this was mass-market YA horror, they couldn't have Freddy doing full-on, gruesome, cinematic kills.
Right, they had to avoid parental outcry.
Exactly. So his participation is limited.
But when he's there, the sources praise Richards for capturing the goofy, dangerous charm and the overall over-the-top vibe of the films.
Which is key.
It reads, frankly, like a good episode of the short-lived Freddy's Nightmares TV series, which means you just can't get Robert Englund's voice out of your head while reading it.
No, you can't. And the title itself, Blind Date, ties into the climax with a classic Elm Street pun.
Okay, lay it on me.
So, following that terrible accident hinted at earlier, Alicia is rendered blind. She then has to undergo an experimental eye transplant.
An experimental eye transplant. Okay.
And to get that transplant, she must be put to sleep, which makes her perfectly vulnerable to Freddy Krueger running around on Elm Street.
That is a hugely convoluted and extremely dark way to get a teenage girl into the dream world and justify the title.
It is. Now let's tackle the verdict, because the reviews are wildly divergent.
All over the place.
Completely. On the one hand, one reviewer flat out gave it a 1 out of 5, calling it an awful way to start a series. They complained that the writing was juvenile, the chapter endings were filled with cheesy, suspenseless cliffhangers.
The worst.
And critically, that the story goes nowhere and never flat out tells you who the killer is.
A literary blind date that ends with the reader feeling rejected and sad. That sounds like a failure of execution, especially if the promised horror icon barely appears or the mystery isn't even resolved.
You think so, but then you have the more nuanced view. This perspective found the book compulsively readable.
Okay.
This reviewer noted that while the ending might be confusing, the book was surprisingly dark and sometimes fairly mean, possessing that more vicious heart compared to the Stein books. They were willing to overlook the juvenile flaws for the pulp value.
And the context of that positive reviewer is crucial here, right?
It is. The analysis we conducted showed their review was published in a section surrounded by articles reviewing hyper-niche physical horror media distributors. You know, Arrow Video, Scream Factory, Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh, so a real genre head.
Exactly. That tells you something important about their perspective. They are deeply invested in the entire spectrum of horror history, so their appreciation for the book's pulpy, fast-paced fun is coming from a place of genre expertise.
Where sometimes the B-movie spirit outweighs narrative perfection.
That's it exactly.
So, depending on your appetite, whether you're looking for literary clarity or quick, cynical 90s pulp, you either hated the juvenile nature and the confused ending, or you loved the speed, the darkness, and the constant feeling that Robert Englund was narrating the entire thing. So what does this all mean? Our deep dive reveals that Freddy Krueger's Tales of Terror, Blind Date, was a bizarre, mean-spirited, yet highly readable 1994 YA book.
Mm-hmm.
It was deployed as brand maintenance during a slow period, giving its target audience a quick, pulpy, slightly violent horror fix, even if the creative structure of the genre forced it to drastically restrict Freddy's trademark behavior.
It was a successful commercial experiment for the publisher, even if the result was divisive among critics.
Yeah.
And there's one final, cruel irony.
Which is?
Because these books were cheap, single print run paperbacks, they are now extremely scarce on the secondhand market.
And pricey when you do find them.
Very pricey.
Which honestly is the kind of cruel, ironic joke that Freddy Krueger himself would absolutely enjoy.
I agree. This whole exercise of limiting a nightmare demon into a standardized teen format raises a compelling point for you to mull over, learner.
Let's hear it.
Considering the strict commercial restrictions placed on Freddy Krueger in YA literature, specifically limiting his dream participation and his outright kills, how much did the necessary creative structure of this horror icon end up defining the inherent limits of the entire YA horror genre of the 1990s?
In other words, did Freddy's constraints shape the decade's teen horror?
Something to think about.
Think about it, and we'll see you next time for the next deep dive.